What's going on, Packers fans? Welcome into Happy Hour. Thanks so much for being here. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Of course, you can find me at Pack-A-Day Podcast on Twitter as well. It's going to be a fun one today. I can tell already some good questions already piling up in the chat. I've got about an hour to go through. Then I got to pick up my kiddo. But again, appreciate you guys being here. We'll get to as many questions as we possibly can over the course of the next hour or so. And then we'll go from there. But we will kick things off right away. But D'Evan Brim, thanks so much for being here. Did I get a chance to get a good look at our boy Kalen Shields yet? Seriously, though, this marks a year since I've been a subscriber. Keep it up, Andy. Go Pack Go. Well, first of all, thank you so much for that. I did not get a good look at Kalen King on day one of mini camps. Again, this is one of those things where you get to 80 guys that are out on the field practicing, and it's kind of tough to keep an eye on everyone. The only time I really had the chance to watch him was in the 2-minute drill with the number 3s, and maybe the number 2s, I should say, probably as well. He was probably out there. But for the rest of the practice, you had 2 different sides that were practicing, and I'm always going to be watching the 1s for the most part. So Kalen King was down with the 2s on the other side, so didn't get to see him there. Nothing stood out, good, bad, or ugly, from the entire 2-minute drills or anything like that. But I didn't get a great glimpse of him one way or the other than I did see that the number 2 defensive back line was Kalen King, Kamal Haddon, and Micah Robinson that were out on the field at the same time. Micah Robinson had a nice pass breakup, but didn't notice anything in particular from Haddon or Kalen King on the day. All right, Jesse, can you explain the benefit of cutting Jaire Alexander further? There's not many free agents left that would be worth signing at this point. Couldn't we just release him next year if he has another injury this season? So, Jesse, this has nothing really to do with how they would spend that money per se, or what they would use it on this year. It really doesn't have anything to do with kind of any of that. What this comes down to is the contract that he's on, and is he worth it on that contract as is? So in its simplest terms, Jaire Alexander is set to make $17.5 million in cash this season, $17.5 million. Your job as a GM is to decide, regardless of anything else, regardless of what you would use that money on elsewhere or anything like that, the job of a GM is to say, do we want to pay Jaire Alexander $17.5 million to play corner for the Green Bay Packers this year? If you listen to today's show, this is where I said this is a damned if you do, damned if you don't sort of situation for Goody. Flip a coin one way or the other. If you bring him back, regardless of if there's a restructure or anything like that, if you bring him back, and we'll just say at the $17.5 million, if you bring him back at $17.5 million and he plays great, you look like a genius. Look at Goody. He made the right move. They brought him back. Jaire was great. Maybe he was the missing piece of the entire defense, and everything looks awesome. If you bring him back at $17.5 million and he plays his usual 4 to 8 games through the course of the year, he's averaged exactly 50% of the games over a 4-year period of time. If he plays 8 games this season, it's not worth $17.5 million. And if he goes out earlier than that, plays only like 4 games or something like that, Brian Gutekunst is an idiot. What was he doing possibly bringing him back at $17.5 million when for 4 years straight he was consistently missing a ton of time? You thought at ages 25 through 27 he couldn't stay healthy, but now at age 28 you thought he was going to stay healthy? Like, what was he possibly thinking? What an idiot decision. So there's that side of it. If you release him, right? If you release him and say, we're not going to pay that $17.5 million, we couldn't find a trade partner, and he goes to another team, probably Minnesota, Detroit, Chicago, right? We know how these things work, but regardless of what team it is, if he goes somewhere and you release him and he signs with somewhere and whoever it is and goes out and plays 16 games and has an all-pro season, what an idiot Brian Gutekunst is. And if you cut him and he plays 4 games, he gets hurt right away again and doesn't play or live up to expectations, man, was Goody a genius because he got rid of him and didn't pay him that huge contract and then, have him get hurt and not play at all through the course of the season. You do not have the ability or the benefit of hindsight when you make this move. I talked about it before any of this, sort of stuff came out of that Green Bay was looking to trade him or anything like that. To me, there was no chance that they were going to pay him $17.5 million after 4 years of injury-riddled seasons. There was just no chance. I still believe that to be the case. I'm not saying he won't be back. I just don't think there's any chance that he's back at $17.5 million. And that's basically been what Green Bay has said this entire offseason by either trying to trade him or looking at ways now to restructure the contract. They're looking at now ways to potentially find a compromise here, but they have to find one because really from a pure just analytical, mathematical standpoint, it's really tough to make the argument that you should pay him $17.5 million this season when he's been injured for 4 consecutive seasons. And quite frankly, has not lived up to that type of contract over those last 4 years. When he's healthy, there's no question about it that he can still be arguably the top cover corner on this team. I don't think anyone's really arguing anything different. And he can still add a ton of value to this team. But if you do that and you bring him back, even if it's for 12 million, 14 million, whatever that number is, and he gets hurt right away, it is mud on your face. And it does not look good because the numbers and the statistics and the averages showed you he has not been able to stay healthy over 4 years in the prime of his career. So what would give you the indication that at age 28, he'll still be able to stay healthy? This is not a debate on the scouting report of Jaire Alexander. This is not to say that when he's out there, he can't be still one of the better cover corners, if not an elite cover corner in the NFL, where you come out on that, whether it's elite or just really good or anything in between, your mileage may vary, but that's not what we're debating here. This is all about money versus what you're going to get in productivity, what your ROI is going to be on $17.5 million. And so far, Green Bay this offseason has said, we cannot pay $17.5 million for a player where we are just completely in the dark as to what return on investment we're going to get on that money. And I genuinely stand by that standpoint or that idea. And I have from even again before there was the rumors of a potential trade. And I think some people misconstrue that as I don't want Jaire on the team. That has nothing to do with it. I've said all along that for Jaire, I think the best outcome is that he's on the team and healthy. But you just have this massive mystery box if you have no idea if he's going to stay healthy or not. And that's where this entire situation comes from. And if he's back, unequivocally excited about it, and just you hope and pray that he stays healthy. That's all there is to it, because he's a good corner. There's no doubt about it. He's going to be corner one in Green Bay if he's back. That's exciting. And to your point, there's nobody that you're going to find unless you're trading for, Trey Hendrickson at this point that you're going to be able to get that's going to be able to add to your team the way that Jaire Alexander would. That'd be pretty exciting if he can stay healthy. And if he is gone, if they do decide to release him or trade him, then fingers crossed that does not come back to bite you. And he goes on to have a all-pro season, specifically if he ends up with one of your teams in the NFC that you could be going against either in the division or competing against in the playoffs at some point in time. So it's a very tricky situation, which is why this thing has lingered on all throughout the course of the offseason. All right, Jesse, coming in for a game this year from Pennsylvania, would you recommend waiting for tickets or getting them sooner? Prices seem really high at the moment. Coming for the Washington game. Yeah, so if you're coming for the Washington game, I don't know that things are going to change all that much. You could have a major injury at one side or the other that would maybe do it, but then you're probably less inclined to come in that situation maybe anyway. This is just personal preference. I have no real advice for you here. They could go up at the last moment. They could go down at the last moment. Usually the longer you wait, meaning if you get up to game time, you can usually get a little bit of a discount, but that's always like a tricky situation as well. And then you've made your plans, you're in town and you don't have tickets yet and you start to panic. I'm always one that I'm usually just going to get the tickets ahead of time, even if it's going to cost me more just for peace of mind. But again, that's to each their own and their own sort of philosophy with that stuff. But other than if it's a game later in the season, I would say maybe wait till halfway through the year, because you don't know what the team's going to look like. And if the team's bad, the prices go way down or things can definitely change there. But for a game like Washington, you're probably going to get what you get at this point as you even get closer. But that again is probably a little bit more on your call. Shane, thanks so much for becoming a brand new member. Appreciate that a ton. All right, Omer. Green Bay's offense is deep top to bottom. Love must reduce interceptions, prove he's elite. Wide receivers got to catch balls. Lloyd must live up to the hype as running back too. Musgrave play like a second round pick. Morgan and Belton like first and second. Aaron Banks has to prove he's worth the money. Green Bay D will be a lot better if Jaire returns. Also frees up Hobbs to play the slot. He'll play out in the slot either way. But cornerback room is fine if so. LVN moved to the interior defensive line would solidify a weak defensive line. He will not be moved to the interior of the defensive line. He might play there on some occasions, but he's not going to turn into a defensive tackle. Rookie defensive ends and Cox Jr. must have an impact. Hafley worked miracles in 2024 after taking over for inept Joe Barry. He can continue to get up. Most of the rookies all should be fine. Edgerrin Cooper, the game wrecker, and Quay keep progressing. Biggest obstacle this team faces are injuries. Last season, first time in many, Green Bay was healthy for the most part. Need the same in 2025. We saw that what injuries did to the Lions this past year. So a couple things I'll say about this, Omer. Injuries are always going to be the great equalizer. And there are going to be probably 3 to 5 teams in that range that just get snake bit to the point of not even be able to be competitive. We saw that to an extent with Miami. We saw that really with San Francisco this past year, Detroit to some extent with some of their key players. There are going to be teams that just have injuries that literally no team can overcome. I mean, San Francisco was the 1A example of that this past year. If you end up being that team that's snake bitten, your season's just done before it starts. And the beautiful thing about Green Bay is they have a lot of depth at a lot of places that can get them through a variety of injuries. Like, they're set up for that. But if you have the catastrophic ones, there's just nothing that you can really do. So hopefully, first and foremost, Green Bay is not the team with the catastrophic injuries. The second thing I'll say is you mentioned a lot of names in there. I think the great thing, or the beautiful thing, is that Green Bay has a lot of players that are still young and in the primes of their career and are still hopefully progressing. And I would argue that all the things that you mentioned do not need to come to fruition, but they have a lot of different young players that all can still get better and that all can still peak in a very solid and positive direction. And they do need some of those to come to fruition. They don't need all of them, but they do need some of them to progress and take that next step. But they have a ton, and I mean a ton, of young players, from Evan Williams to Von Bullard to, whether we want to count Kalen King in that conversation or not, but bringing in a Nate Hobbs. Even Keyshawn Nixon with a change of position is very interesting there as well. Edgerrin Cooper, Quay Walker still really in that conversation also. All like the edge rushers, maybe outside of Rashawn Gary, still young, up and coming. Guys like Devontae Wyatt, Carl Brooks, Colby Wooden, so many of the guys on the offensive line. The wide receivers are all in that category. Guys like Marshawn Lloyd, Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft. There's so many players, even Jordan Love, that are still coming into their own and that can get better. They don't need all of them, but they do definitely need some of them to take that step in the right direction. Jesse, Rashawn is making top 10 money as an edge rusher. My fears were going to pay Tom similarly top 10 offensive tackle money when he hasn't produced at a top 5 level. Realize there's projection, but high risk in my opinion. Just out of curiosity, where was PFF on grades for Zach Tom last year? I honestly just haven't even looked at it in a long time. So let's see here. Tackles. Tom was the 6th ranked offensive tackle by PFF. I would have no issue giving Zach Tom a top 5 contract. And I think the beautiful thing about Zach Tom is so many different things. One, he's just really freaking good. Is he like maybe a top tier, whether we want to call it top 5 or not, tackle? Maybe he's a step below that. I'm not comparing him maybe to a Penei Sewell or anything like that, but he's a damn good football player. And I would have no real issue giving him that money to keep him in Green Bay. The second thing is he's been the consummate professional, no off-field issue, kind of exactly what you look for in the locker room. All of those things are positive. Plus, he gives you 5 position versatility, which is going to give you a little bit of a bump anyway, because if you need to move him around anywhere, you can move him around anywhere. There is so much value in a player like Zach Tom, where even if he ends up being the 15th best tackle in the NFL and you're paying him as the 5th, also paying him for being, again, great teammate, great locker room guy, is not, knock on wood, has not really had any injury issues. He's been consistently available and can play 5 different positions on the line. So much value in that. So I don't even necessarily need him to be a top 5 tackle to give him top 5 tackle money, if I'm being honest. And PFF had him as the 6th ranked offensive tackle this past year. So he's in good company as it is already. Is it possible they still don't need a wide receiver 1? Hear me out. Last year, we were beyond convinced it wasn't needed, and having multiple good options was maybe even better, as it'd be unpredictable. Don't think that logic has changed as much as the wide receiver group simply disappointed. A star would be great, of course, but I think fans had an entire philosophy shift when guys just need to live up to expectations. Packers HQ, I am very much on your side of this. I'm not saying it wouldn't be great if Dontavian Wicks or Jaden Reed or Matthew Golden or Romeo Dobbs or whomever that might be, Savion Williams, Christian Watson, whoever develops into a true legitimate top 10, top 15 wide receiver in the league. Sign me up. I will gladly take that. But we saw today that statistic that came out that the Packers had basically the most self-inflicted wounds at wide receiver of any team in the NFL, that their errors caused more problems at wide receiver than any other team, with Jaden Reed being the most guilty of any player in the league and Dontavian Wicks being the 2nd most guilty of any player in the league. And we sort of knew this already. Jaden Reed was in the top 3 in drops with 10 drops this past year. Dontavian Wicks had the highest drop percentage of any wide receiver in the league. Like, we knew that there were issues, but I'm with you. If instead of, getting a quote unquote top wide receiver, if Dontavian Wicks and Jaden Reed and these wide receivers just catch the balls that they're supposed to catch, if everyone just does their 111th, if they just play at the level that we know they're capable of playing at, they're going to be a massively more explosive offense. There was the tweet that Ryan Wood had pinned for just about forever, was basically like, if you just took all the drops last year and cut them in half, Jordan Love goes from like a middle tier quarterback to being like a top 5 quarterback in the league. So if the receivers can just do their job, they don't need to get open any better, right? That's not a problem. They're getting open, especially Dontavian Wicks. He's a master at getting open. This is not a route running issue per se. There's times that they need to run at the right depth and have better attention to detail. There's absolutely a piece of that, but this isn't a skill set issue. This isn't that they can't do what they need to do out on the field. It's just completing the play. And if they can just go out and do that at a better level. And I do think, by the way, that and I've talked about this, but what gets lost in the sauce a little bit with Jordan Love being injured last year isn't just that he wasn't necessarily quite up to peak physical condition, but it was all the practice time that he missed. And he missed some practice time in camp because of the contract issue, right? So he missed a lot of practice time this past year. And that messes with your rhythm and timing with the wide receivers that are out there, especially when you do have a variety of receivers that are out there running routes for you. It's not just like the same 3 guys every time. You have to get on the same page with those guys. And I'm hoping that this year, with a healthy Jordan out there with his wide receivers in practice every day, knock on wood that's the case, I think you're going to see more rhythm and consistency within that offense. And if those guys just do their job, catch the balls that are there for them, you're going to see an offense that takes off in a very significant way, whether you get that top number 1 wide receiver or not. So Packers HQ, I'm more with you on that end of the argument than anything else. Jeff, thank you so much for becoming a new member as well. Appreciate that. All right. On a serious note, went back and watched your deep dive on Coop and was wondering, do you think he put on the 20 pounds so he could get off blocks better, or was he better with it in 24 versus when he was at A&M? He was better at it, but he's still somebody that is able to go around blocks instead of going through blocks. I'm sure there's a piece of him that would probably like to be able to take on blocks a little bit better. I mean, that's something that the linebacker coaches have been kind of working with him on, but his ability to basically almost like juke out and get around linemen and not have to take on blocks so he can explode into the backfield is really kind of his superpower. I think for me, just anytime you're stronger, right, that's going to be a benefit out on the football field. But I also think that it's for him an ability to stay healthier, that you're the hammer and not the nail. You're not the, 220-pound skinny guy on the field. You're the 240-pound guy that's coming at you like a missile that now is also chiseled. And again, you're going to be the guy that's inflicting more of the punishment in those situations. So I think it's mostly in an effort to stay healthier through the course of the year and stay a little bit more durable. But I'm sure the ability to kind of take on blocks and be a little bit stronger is certainly going to be an added advantage for him as well. John, thanks for the question. There are going to be some epic roster battles between players on the bubble this year. Among all those players, who do you think really has that killer instinct that will give them the leg up? It's a great question, John. That's a really interesting question. I don't know off the top of my head if I have a great answer to any of those. I just think in general, the wide receiver position is going to be a really fun group that is battling. And I think a lot of those guys have that instinct. I think Jaden Reed really wants it. I think, certainly Romeo Dobbs puts the time, effort, and energy in. And I think Matthew Golden is going to bring a whole nother level of intensity to that group as well. So I'm really excited to see who just kind of steps up there and takes those opportunities and runs with it. That I'm excited for. On the offensive line, I just think the battles at left tackle and right guard are going to be super intense. I think Jordan Morgan's going to want it. Rasheed Walker and Sean Ryan have everything to fight for in a contract year. Anthony Belton's massively talented. So those I'm really looking forward to. I'm trying to think if there's any other ones that just kind of stand out to me, but those are kind of the ones off the top of my head. And I don't know if there's a player that I can point to that I'm like, yep, this player definitely wants it, more than anyone else. But those guys are all very hungry, and all of those really deep competitions are going to be really fun to watch all throughout the offseason. When I think about Jaire, the first play that comes to mind is him coming off his man and flying across the field to interception on a would-be touchdown from Kittle the week 3 in 2021. What's your favorite Jaire play? The pick in Dallas was a big one, a couple of years ago, but my favorite one is still that Viking one where he comes up and blows up the wide receiver screen and gets in the backfield and just makes that awesome play. So I really love the early tenacious Jaire Alexander, which was really kind of before the shoulder injury. But there was also that Rams game early on in his career where he just shut down those Rams wide receivers as a rookie all game long. That was really fun. those are some of the ones that really stand out to me. But listen, he's put on some really great film all throughout his career. And again, if you get him back and he's healthy, there's no question he's going to be a big time value add to this roster. The surprise safety against Minnesota. I don't know if you remember this, Ben. That's a great one as well. He wasn't supposed to go on that play. That was not his role or responsibility. Basically, like I think it was a play action. I think if I remember correctly, he just thought it was going to be a run. So he went aggressively for the play and then realized that Cousins kept it. And rather than like trying to get back and go and cover, he's just like, screw it. I'm just going to go and blitz anyway. So he did, and he got the safety, but that was definitely not his responsibility on the play, which is very Jaire, but is also just, again, shows you the talent and just instincts that he has on any given play. Andy, I'm done talking about Jaire. It's pointless. Proceeds to make an hour-long episode about Jaire, laughing out loud, all jokes. I'm saying that the decision of like what Jaire is going to do is at this point pointless. I think the recap to me was very interesting to go back and look at, but I know you're joking, but I do know what you mean on both sides of it. What position group do you feel the most worried about depth-wise if one of the starters goes down for a good length of time? Knock on wood, that doesn't happen. Obviously, Jordan Love would be number one. Kenny Clark would be in that conversation as well. And then the cornerback depth would be the other one. Those are the three that would keep me up at night. Malik Willis can fill in for 3-4 weeks, and I'm going to feel just fine that they can get through with hopefully a couple wins in that and kind of keep things afloat. Or last year, they basically went 3 wins in that situation. But I digress. That would still be one that would have me losing some sleep over. If Kenny goes out, just the big time run stopping defensive tackle, you don't really have another one. You're kind of hoping for, Brinson and Stackhouse in that situation. And that's a lot to hope on. Carl Brooks and Colby Wooden and Devontae Wyatt are not those big run stopping defensive tackles. They're all more kind of 3 technique pass rush guys. So that would leave me a little bit worried. And then if Jaire's not back and then you lose like Keyshawn Nixon or a Nate Hobbs, you can probably get by with one of those where you could still go like Valentine and Hobbs on the outside with Bullard in the slot, but you can get very, very worrisome very quick with, not knowing what you're going to get from Kamal Haddon or Kalen King or Micah Robinson as that potential next guy up if Jaire is not here and you end up with one more injury. What do you think is the least competent NFL front office? I'd have to probably go and look at this. I just think what the Saints have done over the last 10 years or probably at least last 5-6 years and just not really biting the bullet and getting financially solvent and being financially responsible has been really, really bad. There's some stuff that the Panthers have done that's been awful, but I think that more comes from ownership than it does the front office. So you always have to parse that out a little bit as well. Some of the stuff that Dallas is doing is really weird because they've had some really good draft picks over a 4 or 5 year period of time. And, getting guys like Deron Bland later, obviously CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, they've done a really good job drafting overall, but their free agents philosophy and bringing guys back has been all over the place. There's probably some other ones that are more egregious as well, but those are some ones that off the top of my head stand out. Obviously Cleveland, its own level of nightmare. Chicago has been a roller coaster ride to say the least. We'll see if they did a little bit better this offseason. Hopefully not, but those are ones that definitely stand out to me. All right. Good to see you, Chicken. If you had to take a quarterback who would take option A, 59K passing yards, 377 touchdowns, and 18 interceptions, or B, 46K yards, 350 touchdowns, 111 interceptions, who would you take? I would probably, just based off of the numbers, probably take option B. I would probably feel like I could find the running game to sort of supplant maybe the loss in yardage and, build a good offensive line and hopefully, let some of those guys do a little bit more of the heavy lifting. And I just know that I have a quarterback that's not going to turn over the ball, have basically a 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio over that. I would probably take that one. So option A is Matt Stafford. Option B is Russell Wilson. Okay. I mean, this just depends on really good Russell Wilson in the prime of his career was really freaking good. I mean, really good Matthew Stafford, especially in the Rams years, was really freaking good. The downside of Russ's career has been pretty ugly. Some of the early stuff from Matthew Stafford, which was more, I think, just Lions related than it was Stafford related, was also a little bit hit and miss. Which career I would rather have is a very interesting conversation. I would probably lean Stafford. I think Stafford's the better quarterback on the whole, but man, really good Russell Wilson in Seattle for a stretch was really freaking good too. It's a really interesting debate, but in general, I would probably take Stafford over Wilson if given the choice. I think he just gives you a few more options, but it's an interesting debate. I had the same thought with Golden you had of can't decide who he looks like when he's running. I think he has to get off of Devontae Smith and the routes of Deebo Samuel. I'm not sure I see the Deebo. I do see a little Devontae Smith with him. I do go back, and I know a couple people brought this up in chat. I talked about it during the draft process as well. Prime Terry Glenn, Patriots Terry Glenn is definitely one that I see a little bit in him as well. Just the smoothness and some of the speed as well. There's some Santana Moss there as well. Somewhere in between probably Terry Glenn and Santana Moss. I still can't put my finger on it exactly, but probably somewhere within those two. Saints definitely, they fumbled the quarterback mess since Breeze and won't hit the reset button. Instead, they have this mid now mentality of we're going to be mid forever, but we won't be great or awful. There were some signs this year, and especially now without Carr, that maybe, but they would do. But again, why are you signing Justin Reed this year? What are you doing? What are you doing, New Orleans Saints? Yeah, that I get so frustrated anytime I think of the Saints. They're a really rough franchise to just try to enjoy in any way, shape, or form. Also argue Chicago. Yep, we talked about that. Jets are a pretty good one. Giants, Cleveland, of course. Goody had decided on Amos over Belton in round 2. Would Jaire have already been cut? No. I don't think, and this is where I talked about at the onset, John, of I don't think that what you can use that 17 million for, or what the cornerback depth chart, which is why I didn't change my philosophy after they only picked Micah Robinson in the 7th round. I don't think the decision is based on where the roster is right now or what they can get with that money or anything else. I think this is a decision between what's your ROI on 17.5 million for Jaire Alexander, or what you would get, if you were able to trade him or whatever that is. But I think the decision is simply, do we want to pay Jaire Alexander that money? The answer has clearly been no. And now what options do we have? Can we get something of value in return for a trade? The overwhelming result so far has seemingly been no. They clearly do not just want to cut him outright. I think that is a pretty wise decision. So if you can't trade him, you don't want to cut him, you don't want to pay him, then the only thing left is a restructure. The reporting earlier in the year was from Silverstein and I believe Domovsky as well, basically saying that the team did not even offer a restructure, and then that Jaire would have said no anyway. And then now we get the report this week from Matt that said, hey, there is the opportunity to maybe work restructure here, but that was earlier in the week and we still don't have a restructured or renegotiated deal. So this is why this thing is so hard, is because there's not an easy exit point for anyone. There's not a very clear, easy button to make this simple for everyone, just a very complicated situation. If the new kid, Golden's former teammate, surprises and clearly jumps the 3 at the bottom, could you see a team making a trade for like Heath as a conditional 7th? I don't think Heath, Hardman, or Melton are going to have trade value, especially because I think they know Green Bay is going to cut like 2 of those guys anyway. So I don't think so. I think it would be one of your top 5 that would have to have value. Now, if he came out and was just like awesome and like legitimately showed like he's a really good wide receiver, again, I wouldn't get your hopes up too much. He's going to be fighting for a practice squad spot. Like that's what he's going to be doing. But yeah, I just don't think any of those 3 at the moment have trade value unless they would go out and really kill it in preseason. And then maybe you can get a conditional 7th or something for one of those guys, but teams are going to know Green Bay is going to cut at least 2 of those guys, if not all 3. And it's going to give them the opportunity to just kind of claim them in waivers if they would want to do something like that. An hour goes by quickly with us Packer obsessed crazies. Yes, it very much does. Want to go to training camp sometimes, but I feel like my ADHD would confuse me. I think it almost would be maybe it would confuse you, but it would at least stimulate you. There's stuff going on at all times. So if you're one of those people that needs like multiple things going on, this maybe is perfect for you because there's a bunch going on and you can kind of, move your focus to different things if that's what you want to do. Well, if it isn't and it'll be, what do we need to do to make a deep playoff run this year? I don't know what that means, Engine, but stay healthy and let players do their 111th and do what they're expected to do. I don't think, again, anyone needs to go and be a superhuman on this team. I think if everyone just plays up to their level of expectations, you're going to be in a great spot, but you probably need health, the ball to bounce your way a couple times at the right moments in some of those playoff games, and players to play at the level that they're capable of playing of, with maybe a couple guys really just stepping up in a pretty significant way. That would be probably the easiest answer, but I think you need some injury luck and you need a couple balls to bounce your way if you're going to have a deep playoff run, usually throughout the course of it. Watch some old Packers games today. Man, Randall Cobb was good. I wholeheartedly agree. Very, very good player. Very fun player, especially in the prime of his career. Looks like the NFL will gradually move more and more games to streaming. This could get expensive. I mean, it already kind of is, right? you need YouTube TV, especially if you want the Sunday ticket and if you want the the red zone package. And you just need some service. I guess, maybe you can get the local games if you're in the Wisconsin area on just like the main stations, but you then need, Netflix is going to have games. Peacock is going to have games. Amazon's going to have games. Might even be missing some as well. Wouldn't surprise me if Apple or Paramount or one of these other ones gets involved at some point. So yeah, there's already a huge cost in it. That is for sure. Plus your, Pack-A-Day podcast membership as well. That you have to factor in also. Could you tell how Colin Oliver looks size-wise? Really looking forward to him coming off the edge on passing downs. No, didn't get a good look at him because he was with the rehab group way far away. But we'll kind of keep an eye on him. Again, he was not practicing this past week at OTAs. We'll see if he practices next week, but we'll keep an eye on it. I mean, I don't think there's going to be any major growth or size change in him. I expect him to be a regularly sized off-ball linebacker and an undersized defensive end, but doesn't really matter if he has the get off and can get to the quarterback quickly, which is exactly what they're looking for with him at that position. Need to hold you to an answer, Andy. Is Jaire going to stay a Packer? What's your final prediction? As I've said the last couple of days, to me, it's a total coin flip. If you're asking me to bet on it right now, I seriously don't know. I think I still say no, but man, it could seriously go in any direction. I don't think there's any chance that he plays on the contract as is. There is a world in which, I mean, I've said for a long time now that the most obvious answer for both sides, if you're looking for a reconciliation, is that Jaire gets to the conclusion that he can make more money in Green Bay than anywhere else, which I think is true. And the Packers have a really good corner in Jaire that they can't get anywhere else, which I think is true. And there's so much logic on both sides for just playing this out one more year. And I don't know if common sense takes precedent here, like if it will play itself out that way, but you can make a argument for both sides that Jaire's better off being in Green Bay this year and the Packers are better off with Jaire this year. I think that makes a ton of sense. But money is weird. It sort of perverts things sometimes, and it makes things very complicated. And I just feel like if there was a easy way to find a middle ground for both, wouldn't they have kind of found it by now? But yeah, it truly is to me a real legitimate 50-50 coin flip. And your guess is as good as mine as to what way this will go at this point. Barry Sorrell, 99 will shine. I love that. Hopefully so. That'd be great. Just figure it out. I'm tired of hearing about it. I do think that from a Packers standpoint, and I talk about this on tomorrow's episode, for which is going to be the Packers' biggest strengths, their patience pays off for them more often than not. Go back to the Aaron Rodgers situation and the trade with the Jets. We all just were like, I don't want to hear one more word of leverage. I just get this thing freaking done with. I don't want to talk about it anymore, but they're being able to hold out and wait for more, I think got them the best possible deal in that situation. And whether or not that happens with Jaire, whether it gets them a better contract with Jaire, whether it gets them a better trade with Jaire, I don't know what that ends up being, but I do appreciate the fact that if it were me in Goody's position, 1,000,000%, come to the conclusion. I don't care if it's cut. I don't care if it's trade. I don't care if it's keep. Whatever decision that you come to, just execute on it. Get it done. Like that, if I were the GM at this point, I would have been like, I don't care what it is. We're making our decision. We're sticking with it. We're getting it done now. But I think more often than not, Goody's ability to stay patient through the constant desire of everyone else, including, I'm sure, Jaire Alexander and his agent and the players on the team, probably even the coaches, probably even, obviously the fans wanting to get this thing done. I think more often than not that patience actually serves Goody well. We'll see if that ends up being the case in this situation as well. Do you think this offense with Watson swapped out for Golden is better if you had a prediction? Probably not. I think it's hard for me to say right now that a rookie is going to be able to come in and be able to provide the same level of ability that Christian Watson was already doing. But factoring in maybe the usual injuries throughout the course of the season and some of that stuff, could Golden still outproduce, Christian Watson? Sure. And the fact that you get Christian Watson back at some point is even cooler. So I think they're in a great place whatsoever. But if you were to ask me just in general, if they were both like healthy and I could have just Christian Watson or just Matthew Golden this year, I would probably take Watson, but I do think it's an interesting conversation. And it could just end up being Golden. He's super talented dude, and I'm really excited to see what he can do out on the field. If the first offensive play of his rookie season is a drop 75-yard touchdown pass, I will smash my TV. I feel like that, I would love the play call. Like, just do the exact same thing. It's not Minnesota, so it would be, that week 1 game, which is obviously going to be an epic one against Detroit. Yeah, I'm all in. Give me the 75-yard bomb to either Matthew Golden or Savion Williams to start the year. Just do it. I just want to see what happens. I'm here for the chaos. Andy, what's the best question you've ever been asked during a Q&A? This one. I have no idea. I've been asked, thousands and thousands and thousands at this point. There's none that really stick out to me. I think probably the reason that is Goldex is because I like nerd out for all of this stuff. So a question about Taylor Algersma, or a question about, some deep dive into the salary cap, or a question about, who's going to win the number 2 running back spot. They all are awesome to me. Like, I love every second of each of them. So I don't have one that pops out, but if I think of one, I'll definitely let you know, but none off the top of my head. All I can say is if Watson is back to close to himself, when Watson comes back and you got both him and Golden on the field together, yikes, it could be a ton of fun. I'm all here for it. Have you ever had an interaction with a player who's reacted to something you've said or written about them, good or bad? I have. Thankfully, nothing bad. It's only been positive. There were 3 different interactions that come to mind. One was I wrote an article about a player, about how I thought that the Packers were maybe using him incorrectly. And the player reached out to me on social media and was like, "Thank you so much. I feel this exact same way. I appreciate you." And it totally caught me off guard. And almost to a way of like being the way that it came across, I was almost more like, yeah, you should probably just listen to your coaches and what they're saying. But then that I said, I think I actually, like, a handful of weeks later, gave that player a bad grade for a game because he did not play well. And then he blocked me and unfollowed me. So that's why these things are very fickle. You write something positive one week and it's, "Oh, thank you so much." And then the next week they block you because you have to write it in the opposite direction when things don't go as well. So that's why I don't really try to cultivate these relationships, because I want to be able to continue to just say what I believe and not feel bad that if I know a player, I don't want to really give a bad grade here or anything like that. So yeah, I try to kind of stay away from that stuff. Then there've been a couple like locker room interactions where there's just been, like, you could tell, like, just a show of respect where I've written some positive things about players and they kind of appreciate it, come and give me a fist bump or something like that. So just those sort of things, but those have been really it. And hopefully I can avoid any big 320-pound offensive lineman being upset with me about something that I wrote. If I can avoid that, I'll be very, very happy in the long run. Nothing negative that I can recall. I've had players block me. AJ Dillon blocked me. Nixon blocked me for a bit and then unblocked me. I think it was Nixon. There's another player that was funny because I actually really liked them as a player and was always very positive about them. Devon House blocked me. So there's definitely been like some of those sort of things, but nothing that anyone's like ever. John Cood called me out and wanted to punch me in the face recently. Thankfully, we resolved that. And I think I'm on good terms with John Coon. I don't think I have to be looking over my shoulder at any Packers practices coming up, but no, those have been the only sort of negative ones. Is usually just like a block on Twitter or something like that. And by the way, like, I would recommend any Packers players to block me, by the way. They should give 0 Fs what I have to say. Like, sincerely, like, they have access to coaches who are giving them grades and that have way better stuff than anything that I could say, or, anything about them, right? So whether I'm saying something really great, it should not factor into their anything. If I'm saying something bad, it should not factor into their anything. That would be my advice to give them. Like, listen to the players in the people in the building. That's who you should be listening to, not me or anyone else that is writing about anything Packers related. Just stay away from it. Stay away from the noise. It's fun for us as fans. It's fun for me to get to talk about it. I love what I do. I take it very seriously. I try to be as respectful as possible and try to be as, just forthright in what I am seeing out on the field as possible. But if I were giving advice to players, just avoid all that stuff. Just go out and be the best version of you. I'm a Packers fan and the thought terrifies me for the opposing defense. Oh, for the wide receivers, for sure. Are there any non-Packer fans here? I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. I go to the Lions streams all the time. That just pisses them off. Don't be that guy. Chicago Pope lurks on the site. All right. Quay Walker can build on what he got going last year. I'm envisioning his partnership with Cooper as similar to peak Devontae and Devin White. I'm really feeling that. Yeah, I mean, that'd be fun. I don't know who's, Devin White and who's Levante David in that situation, but just give me a really good linebacker group with Quay and with Cooper. I think we're hopefully trending that way, and I would love to see that come to fruition. During the rookie season, I remember you saying that Musgrave's athleticism really stood out during camp. Didn't hear as much last year in camp. Does he still have it? He still has it. He just hasn't been able to really take that athleticism and get it out on the field. I think injuries have really hampered that a little bit. Had a great 28-yard reception in a 2-minute drill the other day. So that was a really great sign. He seems to be healthy, which is another really great sign. He just needs to stay healthy and have a full training camp. And I think that would do him wonders. We've heard from Green Bay already that they want to go with more 2 tight end sets, which I think is really smart. So hopefully this is really, truly the breakout year from Luke Musgrave. I thought he was tremendously talented coming out of college. I love the player. I still think there's a really, really talented football player there, but hopefully this is the year that he can go out and show that and stay a little bit healthier. There is a chance this year that 7 top 96 picks from the last 3 drafts will be rotational players. That's actually kind of sad when you think about it. I'm assuming from a Packers standpoint. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I'm going to be talking about on my biggest weaknesses episode coming up on Sunday, I believe that's going to be the case of when that one comes out, is, just needing to hit a little bit higher on some of these top draft picks. And hopefully some of these guys like an LVN or a Luke Musgrave can have their breakout years this year, and we're not talking about them anymore. And hopefully guys like Matthew Golden, Anthony Belton, Savion Williams can go out and be absolute studs, and they can be the next version of some of those top draft picks. But they do need a little bit better ROI from some of the players on the top of their draft. There's no question about it. Let's see. If late round picks are multi-year projects, why do we mainly focus on rookies when talking about who will make an impact? Shouldn't last year's late picks be more likely to contribute? Yeah, I just think it depends. And I do think you're right in to say that with late round picks this year, don't get too excited about it or too, hyped up about it. The odds that a late round pick comes in and contributes in a significant way right away is usually pretty slim. But I think anytime that you just get a rookie class in, you're always just excited to see what they can do. You never know, right? Like we saw a couple of years ago, guys like Carl Brooks and Dontavian Wicks, amongst others, come in and be able to make an impact right away. Sometimes for others, it takes a little bit of time. Sometimes that's the same for first, second, and third rounders. There's no perfect timeline for any of these guys. And I think the other thing we lose track of too is some of these guys coming out are 20, 21 years old. Other of them are 24, 25 years old. There's a huge difference in the overall age, talent, and just breakout age of some of these players. And it's all different for all different players, all different positions. So I think anytime there's a Packer on the team, whether it's a first-year guy, second-year guy, third-year guy, you're always hoping for the best until they prove you otherwise. And there's always hope for every rookie every single time. That just is kind of the joy of the draft and getting new players on your team. We 100% need a wide receiver 1, but we just anticipate one of our current guys will develop into that, while the media wants it to be obtained via the draft or free agency. I still don't feel like you necessarily have to have that number 1A guy. I think if you have a really good group, if you just had 3 or 4 really great wide receivers that were all, somewhere between the 30th and 60th wide receiver in the league, I think you can still put together a really fun offense that way, especially with guys like Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave, hopefully Josh Jacobs as well. You can still have more than enough weapons that way. So I'm not a full believer that you have to, no question about it, have a true 1A wide receiver. But if you could give me one, I will still take it, regardless of if it's a guy stepping up that's on the team already, or via a trade or a draft pick or a free agent signing. I don't care. Just get good football players, and that's usually going to pay off for you one way or the other. Receivers be the ball. Long snappers, as we know, are super important for special teams. If this is clearly true, why do teams never draft long snappers? I honestly think there's a couple of different things here. One, teams that have drafted long snappers have not had great success with it. They haven't had the ability to come in and be impact guys, or be just these great long snappers. Matt Cardona is it Matt Cardona? Is that the wrestler? Joe Cardona? Matt Cardona is the wrestler. Joe Cardona, I think, was the long snapper for the Patriots. Joe Cardona is the long snapper. He got cut this year. He was a draft pick, a 5th round pick in 2015. Now he stayed for a while, but he never really became this top tier long snapper. Matt Cardona is in fact the wrestler, the former, what was his name? Zach Ryder. So yeah, the former Zach Ryder, but I digress. Joe Cardona didn't really become of anything. Who's the guy that the Packers drafted as a long snapper? Was it Hunter Bradley? He never turned into anything. So I don't know that teams know how to scout that position well enough to be like, yeah, let's spend draft picks on it. And usually specialists in general, you're just better. Like you can find a Tom Brady in the 6th round. I would rather take a lottery pick on something that is of actual value than, potentially a long snapper when you can kind of find those guys anywhere. And I just don't think teams have the ability to really know what makes a great one, or that you need to draft one to get a great one. So I think that's probably the bigger thing. If you knew like in the 7th round, you could draft a long snapper and he'd be like a 15-year great long snapper, I think teams would absolutely spend a draft pick on that. I just don't know that they feel like they're going to get that when they spend a pick on one. Don't sleep on the tandem though. Those Tampa Bay Buccaneers were nice. Our boys were nice. Yes. David and especially Levante David. Levante David's been one of my favorite players to watch in football over the past decade or so, or a decade or more, I should say. I can get bad value, but you're telling me the value is worse than a Lou Nichols? Who are we talking about here? I'm not sure I understand the comparison, but yeah, you'll have to give me a little bit more context there, Chicken. I have a sense that Wicks dropped very few passes in the last third or so of the season, but I do not have access to any game logs to show it. I assume you do. Did he improve? He definitely improved. I can tell you where he was at for drops, I think. Dontavian Wicks. Actually need to go to this. Drops. He had 1 in week 1, 2 in weeks 4. Sorry, there's a bug buzzing by me. Let's see, where was I? 1 in week 5, 2 in week 9. Then from weeks 11 through the wild card game, he only had 3 drops the rest of the season. 1 against the Dolphins, 1 against the Saints, and 1 against the Eagles in the wild card game. So only 3 from week 11 on. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 3 in his final 9 games. So basically 1 every 3 games from that point forward, which is a little bit more acceptable. Obviously a lot more prior to that. So it did definitely clean up as the year went along. Kalen King fighting for his life too. No question about it. Let's see. Does Malik Willis genuine starter upside? I get he had Matt LaFleur calling plays, but he genuinely looked better than a good backup in a good situation. I think there would still be a step that he would need to take. I think that offense was pretty cookie cutter in a lot of the different things that they did. What I will give Malik Willis credit for in a lot of different ways is executing the offense the way it perfectly needed to be executed. And then when he was tasked with making a big throw, whether it was a 3rd down, a red zone opportunity, whatever it was, he came up with those big throws almost every single time. So I think, he was a top 100 pick for a reason. There's a lot of talent there. He's very even keeled. I mean, he's got the leadership aspect down. I mean, he's an unbelievable guy to listen to in the locker room and in his press conferences and things like that. Very driven, very self-motivated, very smart. Again, came up with the plays, very athletic. He's got a lot going for him. Now, whether or not that he can do that on higher volume through a 17-game season, I think there's still a lot of projection there. What I think is he'll try to get an opportunity next year when he's a free agent, go to a team that either is drafting a quarterback early and try to be the stopgap quarterback to get his opportunity there, or just go to a team that has a bad quarterback situation and try to figure something out. But I'm intrigued by it. I do think if he's a starter, probably his ceiling is sort of like a bottom 3rd starter in the league. I don't think there's anything above and beyond that, but I wouldn't bet against the guy. He's a very fun player, and I'm very happy that Green Bay has him as a backup for this upcoming season in case anything would happen to Jordan. Totally agree on the Saints being the most incompetent. Saints and Packers are like polar opposites of cap management. It's fascinating, very much so. Raiders would be considered too, but they just got a whole new front office. So I think I'm more intrigued and willing to give them a pass with their new ownership group and front office and coach and everything like that. Let's see what they kind of do. I thought they had a really nice offseason this past year, and it seemed to be more trending in the right direction. How come they put Justin Herbert in the elite category when Love has done more in 3 years than Herbert has done in 5? Rosters are comparable. Only advantage Love has over Herbert is being drafted to the Packers. Yeah, if I were to ask or be asked right now, and again, I'm not going to make a strong statement on it because I've watched every throw of Jordan Love's. I've not watched every throw of Justin Herbert's. On the basic level, if you were to ask me right now if I would rather have Justin Herbert or Jordan Love, I would probably take Herbert ever so slightly. I don't know. I don't have a great answer for you. I would need to go watch Herbert again a little bit more on a down-to-down basis to really compare the two. I do think statistically, you can look at Jordan Love and say, hey, it's been as good or if not better than what Justin Herbert has produced. We'll see over kind of the course of the next few seasons how that kind of progresses. I think that draft class in particular is going to be kind of a fun one to keep an eye on, but the Packers are in very good hands with Jordan Love right now. I think he's going to have a really good season this year. I'm really excited to see what he can produce. And maybe by the end of this year, or, as we talk next year on these sort of chats, we'll be talking about how Jordan is clear and obvious the better quarterback than Justin Herbert, and he's getting his flowers. And hopefully that's the case. And I would love to see that. Again, Raiders, the reason being is that they have a new front office, new ownership group, new coaching staff. And I thought they had, like I said, a really nice offseason this year. So I'm willing to give them the pass for now because they are being run differently than they were in the past. Yes, very much Cleveland. Cleveland, another one for sure. Dallas, that has the same really good picks. But wow, are they terrible long-term for sure? Yeah, we talked about those. Nobody told Mickey Loomis that Breeze retired 5 years ago. Seriously. Remember when everyone thought Joe Douglas was a genius and Goody was a dummy for the Rodgers trade? So much hate. Packers always win. They definitely got the better of that deal. Ryan Williams is the best comparison to Devontae Smith. Golden is like Santana Moss, Tyreek Hill type of player, especially if you watch the Houston tape. Santana Moss is one that I've come back to. Again, Terry Glenn a little bit as well. There's some other players mixed in, but yeah, no, Ryan Williams is going to be a really fun player. I'm excited to watch him in college this year, and he's going to make one heck of an NFL player when he gets there. Corner seems to be the only position Goody doesn't draft for the future with. Even that, I mean, Stokes was somewhat of an upside play. Jaire was definitely ready to play right away. I think they thought Josh Jackson was going to be ready to play right away. Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. I think the idea that Goody drafts for only the future is definitely overblown, especially in the first round. Love was definitely a player that was obviously drafted for the future. Rashawn Gary, I think would have actually played more had they not signed Preston and Za'Darius right away. But just the fact that Preston and Za'Darius were so good and basically not coming off the field at that point limited some of Gary's ability early on. But he was obviously a little bit more of a developmental play. LVN was, but outside of that, most of the guys like Eric Stokes was a starter from day one. Jordan Morgan was going to be the starter last year. I really, truly believe that. And he was a starter all throughout college. That was not like a long-term upside play. He was ready to come in and play right away. And I think more often than not, they've picked guys that have been fairly ready. But I think it gets a little bit more overblown than what it actually is. Sorry about that. I got about 8 minutes left. We've got a lot of chats here that I'm not going to get to. We're going to go after this one. We're going to go members only for a few and then get to those super chats as well. If you look at the top 10 to 15 top free agents available right now, 3 to 5 years ago, could you even imagine any of them rotting in free agency in June? No, but the NFL hit too fast. You get very old very quick in the NFL. Packers have 2 players over the age of 30 on their roster, and they're both specialists, Matt Orsic and Brandon McManus. And Orsic is 30. So they are a very young team. And guys like Keenan Allen and some of the players like that, they get old very, very fast. So yeah, it's a young man's game. Cobb, Nelson, and Adams highlights are just fun to watch in general. Agreed, especially Adams. Love watching his. After watching Carrington Valentine get handled by Jalen Hurts in that playoff game, do you still think he can help more than hurt the team? No pun intended. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to hold the one play against Dallas Goedert against him in totality. That was a one-off. I thought overall the rest of the season he played pretty darn well, but that one play was definitely one that's going to be put on tape, and other teams are going to try to attack him a little bit as well. But hopefully he bounces back. He's a super competitive dude. He's got all the swagger in the world. I like Valentine. I think this is going to be a very important year for Valentine and kind of, what he can become as an NFL corner. If he gets a sort of big second contract, or if this is just kind of who he is as a player, this is going to be another one that kind of sets the bar for him moving forward. Absolutely Driver as well. Let's see. Refresh my memory. Did Bullard beat out Williams in camp last year for the starting safety spot? Was the switch to Williams only due to cornerback injury? Yeah, Williams, I don't think played any snaps in that first game of the season last year, if I remember correctly. And it was Bullard that was getting more time. And then Williams eventually transitioned. They eventually put, obviously, Bullard more in the slot as well. So yes, it was Bullard that was the safety. Yeah, week 1 last year, Evan Williams didn't play any snaps. Then week 2, he played 20. Then week 3, he only played 4. Week 4, he only played 10. And then week 5, he played 78 and then played a lot more the remainder of the season and ended up kind of being the starter towards the end. But no, it was Bullard that had definitely beat him out to start off with. And then it was kind of a little bit more Williams towards the end of the season. All right. Does Golden get his first touchdown in his first game? I'm going to say yes. I don't know why. The odds are probably against that, but I'm going to say yes. Why the hell not? Think Golden runs like Reggie Wayne? Okay. I need to go refresh my Reggie Wayne watch. I think they're 2 totally different wide receivers, but maybe there's something to the way that they run. I'd have to go back and watch Reggie Wayne a little bit closer. Would you have brought back Josh Myers on his Jets deal knowing that he would be a backup? I would not have had any issue with them signing him to a 1-year, $3 million deal. I think that was probably one that it was just probably best for both sides to kind of go in a different direction at that point. So I would have been fine with it, but I would have also probably been more fine with him going to another team and signing that deal. But would not have been bad. I would not have been upset. Like if right now everything else was the exact same, but they didn't sign like Trey Hill as a 1-year vet minimum center and instead signed Josh Myers to a 1-year, $3 million deal, I would have been totally on board with that. But I'm probably better with him leaving, but would have been fine with him signing that deal in Green Bay. Great color in the hat today. Just got here. Don't know if you already addressed this issue, but if Jaire is indeed back and healthy, do you think he can still be a top 10 corner in the league? I've not addressed that, but do I think that's in his wheelhouse? Yes. I would love if he is back for them to void the next year of his deal. A, so we don't have to deal with all of this again next year, but B, so that Jaire has everything to play for so he can go out and get a massive contract at age 29 next year. I want him having everything to play for. I think, excuse me, if that's the case, if you give him some incentives in his deal with playing time or whatever that might be, and then give him the incentive that he's going to be a free agent next year, I think you could see still a very, very, very good Jaire Alexander. Excuse me. I don't know if it's allergies or some like bizarro cold. I have the weirdest thing where it just like strikes at like only like a couple random times throughout the day, like when I wake up in the morning and kind of before bed, but it's like not consistent. And then like the majority of the day, I'm totally fine. It's the weirdest thing. I think it's allergies, but like also allergies have not been bad in the Green Bay area. I don't know. I digress. Nobody cares. Wanting to punch you in the face. It's a long story. It's not quite that aggressive with the John Kuhn thing, but it was definitely an interesting thing in the moment. I was thinking Montravius Adams. He didn't really catch on in Green Bay, but has played significant snaps for Pittsburgh over the last couple of years, which Lowry actually joined from last year. Lawrence Guy was another guy who they cut 7th round pick, didn't make it on his first, deal in Green Bay. And he went on to have a great career with the Patriots. Obviously Taysom Hill is another version of this. There's definitely been a few of those over time. What are the floor and ceiling of our offensive line this season? Anywhere between the best offensive line and the 15th best offensive line. I think that's the floor and ceiling. I don't think they'll get anywhere below 15th. I think they're too good, too deep, too talented. And I think they legitimately could be the best offensive line. Well, yeah, Philly's pretty damn good. Detroit's pretty damn good. All right. Third and 15th, somewhere in that range is probably the ceiling and floor for the offensive line. Only 37 likes. Come on, everyone. Let's spread Andy's word to the world. Appreciate that, Tulio. Yeah, Zach Ryder. You got it. Thank you for that. Yeah, Matthew's on top of it as well. Bradley was in 2021. Thank you guys for covering me on some of these things. Speaking of, you should have to have a long snapper in Madden. Yeah, they probably should do a better job of that. All teams obviously are starting with them, but yeah, you can kind of get away with not having a long snapper if you're building a franchise in Madden. No shots at long snappers, none at all. They're very important, but I just don't think teams know exactly even what they're looking for until they get them in. Again, Matthew Bradley was a draft pick for Green Bay. It was a terrible long snapper. Just these things, you just have to kind of get them in camp sometimes and see what they got. And they sometimes move around, and all you're looking for a long snapper is just, again, not to be a problem more often than not. Taking a long snapper late in the 7th is worse. It would be better value than Lou Nichols is what I was referring to. Gotcha. Totally fair. But you could lose out on a Rasheed Walker. You could lose out on a Carrington Valentine as well. So you just got to be a little bit careful there. Could lose out. I mean, imagine the 49ers don't take Brock Purdy and took a long snapper instead. That would have changed the franchise in a pretty significant way. What's the floor for Love for Green Bay to keep long term? So do you mean, I got you. So I think he needs to stay in the top 18 of quarterbacks for him to keep, stay, get another big contract in Green Bay. I think if he's anything under that, you start experimenting, you start taking some draft picks in later rounds and things like that just to see if something fits. But yeah, I would probably put it that way. I think 18th or better, he probably gets another contract in Green Bay. After that, he might still, depending on, what they could do and if they, hit on something in a draft or something like that, but probably needs to stay 18th or better. Malik is a great kid and has underrated talent. Love that he's our backup for sure. Agree with all of that. Bench start, cut up quarterback edition, backup quarterback edition, Hundley, Tolzien, and Kaiser. Cut Kaiser, start Hundley, bench Tolzien. Tolzien or Hundley, I could go either way. Hundley's the more talented player. Tolzien probably ran the offense a little bit better, but had no real upside, but does have a wicked spin move. I'm definitely moving on from Kaiser. And then I'll take either answer for Hundley and Tolzien. Can we again be thankful that LV got Ashton Genty instead of Chicago? Yes, very much so. More of just because I want to be able to cheer for Ashton Genty, and I can't do that if he's a Chicago Bear. Carla gifted 5 Pack-A-Day memberships. Carla, the best. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate it a ton. Was Jackson a Goot pick or one of Thompson's last picks? I can't remember. He was a Goot pick. Yep, same as Jaire. Yep. The Corey Valentine, Carrington Valentine thing for sure. Going to get everyone until the end of time. Fred McFarley, thank you so much for becoming a new member. Thank you so much for that. I care, Andy. I care. I appreciate you guys. We do care, Engine. Thank you so much. Best career for a Packers cut, Kurt Warner. Yeah, that's probably in the conversation. I mean, that was like, he wasn't Kurt Warner at that time. So Green Bay had every right to cut him at that point in time. He went on to, it took some time before cut Kurt Warner turned into Kurt Warner. So there's no real issue there, but that's probably one that went on to have the greatest career. You could certainly make that argument. Andy F. and Herman, I appreciate that. Cheddarhead, thanks so much for being a member for 4 months. Might have gotten a little too drunk last year. Can you unblock me? Unblock you from what, Cheddarhead? On X. What's your handle? Hit me here with your handle and I'll unblock you. Thanks so much for being here, and you're totally fine. I get it. I've definitely been too drunk at times as well. And hopefully we're going to do that on a chat coming up. Carla, thank you from Tulio. Do you own every black clover hat? No, they have a ton. They've got like 90 different styles on there. So I've actually was thinking about, I got to go out and get some more here. I think I have like 2 or 3 that might be up there that I've still never worn. So yeah, I've got a couple, but I need a new white one for sure. Probably need a new pink one as well. They're getting a little bit worn. Will Rodgers be a Steeler? Yes. I think he just wants to avoid OTAs and mini camps, to be honest. I bet he signs right before camp and shows up and is the hero and, is the starter come day 1 of training camp. I don't think he's going to retire, but nothing would surprise me. All right, I'll try to get that unblocked when I have a chance. His handle is Devon House. Devon blocked me. I didn't block Devon. Devon blocked me, for the record. All right, biggest recent Packers bust in your opinion? I don't know. I mean, Stokes is up there. That's a pretty big bust. I mean, AJ Dillon in the second round. Amari Rodgers in the third is probably worse than that. Probably Amari or Stokes is probably Darnell Savage. You can maybe put in that conversation, but I'd probably go Amari or Stokes as a guy. I mean, Sternberger in the third, Josh Jackson in the second. There's definitely Kevin King. Kevin King's probably maybe the one too, although he at least started for some time. Josh Jones in the second of that same draft. Montravius Adams in the third. There's definitely some up there, but all right, guys, I do have to get out of here. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you guys a ton. 244 of you on a May 30th chat and pretty much the downtime of the season. So cannot thank all of you guys enough. I'll be back here next week. We'll do members only Q&A. We'll do a live Q&A following OTAs next week, and we'll do the happy hour. Happy hour, I think, is going to be at noon next week, if I remember correctly. So keep an eye out for that. But thank you for all the support. Love you all. I'll see you guys soon. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.